Coming up on today's show, we're going to answer a question we got on a video from Anthony Davis. Have to assume this is the AD we all know, saying, do a video where you predict the records of all the NFC South teams. And I saw this comment and thought, okay, that could be a fun thing to include in a video, but to be honest with you, that'd be a tough thing to make a whole video about that's really all that entertaining. But I wanted to take it one step further. And how about some superlatives for all four NFC South teams? So, without further ado, we start off with the New Orleans Saints, who I have voted most likely to go 8-9 and lose a clutch Week 18 game. Can't you kind of picture right now Saints fans getting all up in arms going into Week 18, winning you're in, and Baker and the Bucs knock them out to get Dennis Allen fired and put Derek Carr on the hot seat? So, most likely to go 8-9 and lose in Week 18 in hysterical fashion goes to the New Orleans Saints, which they have flirted with this exact number the last 3 years or so, since the end of the Sean Payton era and the start of the Dennis Allen era, where 9-8, 7-10, 9-8. They've just been stuck in this purgatory of not good enough to actually do some damage in the playoffs or even really make the playoffs, but not bad enough to go get a superstar quarterback in the draft and turn things around. Now, Derek Carr, I feel like, does get maybe more jokes than he really deserves because he quietly played all 17 games last year and had a really strong season, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 3,800 yards. But the question is, can Derek Carr get New Orleans over the hump of that purgatory middle area that they've been stuck in the last 3 years? And my answer is no, because he couldn't do it in Las Vegas. And it wasn't because he didn't have good players in Las Vegas. Like, the defense was bad, and there are some things that Raiders fans, if any of you are watching right now, can definitely point to as Derek Carr can take responsibility for this, but this one was not on Derek Carr, and ultimately it still smears his reputation. But I don't think Carr is a quarterback that can kind of get that team over the hump into the next level of winning playoff games. Now, before we look at our next superlative here, I just want to show some love to some new subscribers we got here on the channel. True Pence TV, Harry Azrak, John Muirhead, Steve Allman. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. I always try to show some love to our viewers because you guys are the best viewers of Falcons YouTube content out there. So if you're not subscribed and you want to get a shout out on a future show, I suggest you go ahead and subscribe today. Most likely to be the returning division winner sacrificial lamb goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I went back from the 2010 season to present, and I found that 53% of reigning division winners do not repeat the next season, which honestly is a much lower number than I thought it would be. The NFL is great for a lot of reasons. One of it is the amount of parity and how every team is a new team from season to season. Teams go up and down and whatnot, and it's not like, say, the EPL where it's just the same teams at the top pretty much. But still, 53% was surprisingly low. But I think the Buccaneers are the 2024 sacrificial lamb of, well, when you look at the 8 reigning division champs, basically we know that 4 of them aren't going to repeat next year based on what the last 13 years of evidence has shown us. So I think the Bills have a good chance of repeating. I think the Chiefs have a good chance of repeating. I think the Niners have a good chance of repeating. And we know the NFC East always has a new winner. And the Lions went all the way to the NFC Championship game last year, so they definitely have a good shot to repeat as well. And what do you know? I'm at 4 teams already, and the Buccaneers are not one of them. Also, factor in the fact that Baker Mayfield is a very hot and cold quarterback year to year. Go back to his rookie season. 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 6-7 record. Next year, touchdowns go down, interceptions go up. 2020 bounces back. Touchdowns up, interceptions down. Then 2021, unfortunately, he battles through an injury for much of the year. Touchdowns down, interceptions back up. 2020 with the Panthers and Rams, it was a disaster season for much of it. He gets a bit of a life raft tossed in by the Buccaneers in 2023, and he has a really strong best season yet. 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 9-8 record. So you could say Baker is kind of due for a downward spiral for 2024. Now, who do you guys think will win the NFC South this year? Falcons, Bucks, Saints, or Panthers? Let me know down below in the comments section. I'll save my answer for the end of the video. Most likely for the Panthers to enter a toxic quarterback relationship. I'm not out on Bryce Young completely. I don't think he is like the next Zach Wilson, kind of Trey Lance, just complete and utter bust that's just out of the league within 5 years. But I don't think he's anywhere near what the Panthers thought he could be after trading so much to move up to get him. His rookie year was a rough one, a rocky one to say the least. But they, being the Carolina Panthers, did make a lot of really good efforts and execution to improve the surrounding cast. They drafted Jonathan Brooks from Texas. I think he is a really good running back. Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette, one coming over via trade, one being the 32nd pick in the draft. And then they support Bryce Young by giving him two really solid interior offensive linemen, Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, both catching big bags in free agency. So my prediction for the Panthers this year is they will see just enough from Bryce Young to kind of latch on, but not enough to be absolute, that's our guy, but definitely good enough to know to go, we don't need to get a new quarterback just yet. Like, he's leading us on, and we're going to follow him, and we're going to hope that it works out, and probably doesn't, but we'll waste our time this year and next year hoping he could be our guy. So that's my superlative for the Panthers. Before we look at the next two here on today's video, if you want to get yourself started with PrizePicks today, download the app because they've got an awesome deal for the Dirty Birds. But first, what is PrizePicks? Well, it's daily fantasy made easy, where all you have to do is pick 2 to 6 players and then choose more or less on their projected stats. Now, you can play NBA playoff games, NHL games, or you can do some NFL season-long stat projections. I've got the more on Caleb Williams' passing yards, 3,400 for a rookie quarterback. I know it's a big number, but he's got some awesome wide receivers to throw to in Chicago, and he's the undoubted Week 1 starter. J.J. McCarthy, I'm taking the less on him. I don't think he even starts the first week of the season, let alone most of the games in 2024. And then I'll take the more on Malik Neighbors, 875.5. I just feel like he'll have an OBJ-type rookie season up in New York. So if you like my selections, you know the drill. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. But shout out to PrizePicks for supporting us here at Falcons Today. Download the PrizePicks app and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Atlanta superlative, most likely to end NFC's longest playoff drought. The New York Jets have the longest playoff drought across the National Football League at 13 seasons. The Denver Broncos at 8 seasons, which I believe is the longest. No, these two, never mind. Ignore what I was going to say. The Falcons and Panthers are tied at 6 seasons of no playoff football in the Southeast. And I think it ends for one of these two teams, and it's not Carolina. I think Kirk Cousins is good enough to get this team out of where they've been stuck the last 2-3 years at 7-10 and get them to a spot where they can compete to win the NFC South and host a playoff game. Of course, everyone is banking on Kirk Cousins bouncing back from the injury nicely, but if he does, guys, they are taking on a quarterback who the season before had 4,500 yards and 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. I know Kirk Cousins is not a perfect quarterback, and despite having really good stats the last few seasons, it has not always resulted in wins for Minnesota. But I think that these couple of division opponents you'll have to deal with in the NFC South will be much smoother passage than it was in the NFC North. Also, Kirk Cousins has some really good weapons to work with, right? He kind of but towards the end of Minnesota, his time there, didn't have a good ground game from the transition of end of Dalvin Cook to Alexander Madison. Of course, it's a drop-off. No offense, Drake London. going from Justin Jefferson to really anyone else in the NFL. But Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts, they're all very skilled and talented players. These are not plumbers and real estate agents out there. These are really good players. Then you've got the offensive line, which in my opinion is a top 5 offensive line. The worst member of it is a rookie left guard who I think is just going to get better and better as he learns that new role after playing tackle in college football. And then on the defensive side, yes, you have some major question marks, and fairly so. But there are still some good parts about this defense. Like, let's not just forget that Grady Jarrett exists. David Onyemata looked like one of the top 20 interior defensive linemen last year. Arnold Ebiketie had a really strong sophomore year, and there's no reason why he can't build off of that 6-sack season and put together a nice 8, maybe 9-sack campaign. And then A.J. Terrell, one of the best press corners in the game, and Jesse Bates, an all-pro caliber player at the end of the defense. The offense ultimately should be good enough to probably overcome some shootouts that they may find themselves in because the defense isn't spectacular. I'm going to try to be upbeat about the defense here and just end the video on a positive note, but I think the offense under Kirk Cousins and Bijan, all those other weapons we saw, can be good enough to win some of those 31-28 type of games. And the Falcons the last few years have found themselves in that spot, but losing them. Kirk should flip the script, hopefully. My record predictions, though, for the NFC South, I've got Atlanta going 10-7, Saints going 8-9. I think the Bucs kind of take a step back this year, go 7-10. And then the Panthers, they definitely improved from last year. 5-12, though, still a long way to go for Bryce Young in Carolina. So let me toss this question your way before we let you on out of here. Will the Falcons make the playoffs? Yes or no? I think Atlanta makes the playoffs. I do want to hear your thoughts, though, in the comments section. But that's going to do it for us on today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. We're going to sign off and see you all later. But before we do, make sure to leave us a like if you, in fact, liked the video.